You will consider leaving the job many times. Trauma will get normalized. The job won't support you. All these are part of your all these are part of your brutal truths about policing, which you published on your Instagram. So, Ian, talk to me a bit more about what you meant when you started saying that, pal.
Firstly, mate, thanks for having me on. Really appreciated.
Oh, mate.
And I suppose that post kind of came from, think the job will not portray the truths. A lot of people will join and maybe not realise what they're going to face, and what the job will take from you. I think it does some amazing stuff. You know what I mean? I've done 18 years and I feel like I've really developed as a person. You know, from the 21-year-old that joined to when I am now, there is a big difference. But it's also taken quite a lot from me. And I think it takes a lot from a lot of people. And if you go in with a mindset that it's not going to happen, I think we're setting people up to fail. And I think it's the right thing to do, to put it out there and say, look, this is what might happen. You might not. But I prefer to give people the truth rather than this blinded kind of opinion, or these posters that portray everything to be amazing, because that's not the reality.
It's very easy, isn't it, when we see on the news or we see on TV, cops dancing around and cops breaking down doors, and we see it romanticized on TV shows, don't we? Where we think, like Interceptors. You were traffic, weren't you?
Yeah.
So did you ever get approached by any camera crews or anything like that asking you to be part of it?
Yeah, well, we went out with BBC for one night, and we were that terrible. They never they never published it. But I mean, to be honest, mate, that wasn't really something that would have probably interested me. That was kind of thrust upon me a little bit. I was new to the department, and it kind of just happened. But I wouldn't have chose to kind of have a crew out with me. I think you've got to be a certain kind of a person for that, and that really wasn't me.
It's true what you say, that they show only certain aspects and they don't necessarily tell you everything. And I think cops definitely need to be aware of what it is you're entering into. So let's just dive in a bit further in relation to that post. So you say you consider leaving the job many times. So talk to me a bit about that, and also not just about thinking of leaving, but why do people stay so much if they think about leaving so much?
Where that kind of came from for me is, for the first 3 years of my career, I wanted to leave. I was massive amounts of imposter syndrome, worried about what people were thinking, didn't want to make a mistake, convinced myself that I wasn't good enough to do it, looked at other people and compared myself. Everything you could probably do to make you feel really insecure, I did, and considered leaving. I don't know why I didn't really. I think it was probably a bit of security. You get drawn into this where you've got a pension. You know what I mean? You stay. So I stayed. And to be honest, it was a great thing that I did, because I met some amazing people, had some amazing experiences, enjoyed the majority of my career. But I think the reason why people stay, in all honesty, is they lose a little bit of self-belief in themselves. The job, I believe, will convince you that there's nothing outside. Not knowingly, but the culture does. You'll see people that have been in 23 years, 24 years, and what they'll say is, got 7 years left. As if you know,
down.
Yeah, and you think to yourself, well, God, maybe when I get there, that'll be good. Or people feel trapped by a pension that, has got this hold on you. And it used to be very safe, but now it's not. It's not as safe as what it used to be, because, policing is a different environment to what it used to be. You've got social media, which I think is amazing. The police do not use it nowhere near enough. They do not. We miss a trick massively, but it's also extremely dangerous. And that creates, the security of the job isn't the same anymore. So I think people get trapped by the pension massively. I think people lose a bit of self-belief in themselves that something outside of the job transitioning isn't possible, and they don't believe that their skills are transferable, but they are. You know,
Massively. I mean, what do you learn in the police? You learn how to talk to people in crisis. You learn how to think under pressure. You learn how to do decision making. There's lots of transferable skills. I think it's just a case of people only think that is relevant to policing. But in order to get into the police in the first place, you have to have those kind of skills anyway. So if you had the baby skills like that and then you've honed them, then you can definitely look into different careers as well. It's interesting what you say about the pension, though, because, mate, the amount of people I spoke to when I said I was leaving, and he was like, oh, what about pension? Are you in your pension? See, I never entered into the pension because as much as I wanted to stay in the police for the long term, I also didn't want to get caught in that trap. Maybe I've got commitment issues. I don't know. So, but
well, the thing is, mate, it's worked out for you, though, hasn't it?
thankfully, yeah, I managed to get out, and I've not had to worry about that because I know, like you, cops that are 24, 25 years in, and it's like they have it marked on their calendar. This is when I'm free,
Yeah,
as if they're a prisoner
yeah,
because of the pension chain around them.
yeah.
Some cops have said, oh, the salary what you finish on after 8 years of service, the salary you get, you can't just walk into another job like that. But when we think, I don't know if you've thought about this, Ian, but when we look at what a police officer actually has to do, and I know people say the police have a hard job. They've no idea what actually goes into just response driving, never mind specialist units like yourself. The money what cops get at one point it might have been really good, like £45,000 a year. But when you consider the rate of inflation and everything's now more expensive, the actual value of what a police officer has to do is quite diminished. What do you think has to be done in order to keep cops in the job long term?
Bloody hell,
Understand that's a big question.
what a question. Well, ultimately, I think a culture change has got to happen. That's the big
Okay.
thing. I think what we're missing out on massively now is that, one, I think people are coming in a little bit blinded,
Okay.
thinking what it's going to be. We're not looking after the welfare or well-being of officers very well at all. I'd go as far as to say it's terrible. Some forces are going to do it better than others. That they will, but that's the other crazy thing that I can't get my head around. Depending on where you are in the country, will dictate how well you're looked after in terms of your well-being, your welfare.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be the case. But it's the problem that we've got all these different chief constables and all these different police crime commissioners that want to try and make themselves look good, which will dictate where the priorities are. To me, what should happen is you come into the police, you do your initial training, and during that initial training, we show you how to look after yourself around the shifts. We show you lifestyle advice, welfare, to create some work-life balance, show you how to eat, look after your sleep, your energy, because we don't do any of that. And then what we do is we go, out you go. You've got your knowledge around your policies and your laws, and you haven't really, because you'll learn all that when you come out anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's either sink or swim. And the problem that you've then got is that when you go out on shift, because all the bobbies that you're going to be working with, probably on response teams, are only got like 3, 4, 5 years now, but they've already been through that path and haven't dealt with it very well. So then the culture just carries on. And you can't create a workforce that is off sick. And, you've got people, retention levels are awful, but people aren't leaving because they're not capable of being police officers, because of course they are. People are leaving because they don't feel supported and the well-being's terrible. And they don't feel like they can manage unmanageable workloads. I've had 5 messages today from people about burnout.
Joking. 5.
Just today.
Just today.
Just today. 5. And, these are capable police officers that are saying, I can't carry on doing what I'm doing because, one, I can't put my hand up because I'm worried about why am I going to be judged. That's a real thing. And then
And they try to move away from that, don't they? They try to say,
yeah,
look, the well-being support is there, but then you get the older cops who are like, what do you mean you need support? I've been in 15 years and I'm absolutely fine. Or you get the cops who don't feel that not even that they can't reach out for support, but they don't feel that they need it, because we know PTSD is massive in the police just by the nature of what you do, and then eventually the bow breaks, people just
Yeah,
crack.
yeah. Yeah, mate. Well, I think the problem that you've got with bobbies that have got 15 plus years in is
Hmm.
the fact that they're institutionalised. You
Yeah.
know, and look, I've worked with some amazing police officers who've got way more service than what I had, and they were really supportive. Do you know what I mean? And they said, "Look, I've got a problem. Go and speak to people. They're brilliant." Um, but there was also that culture there that you think, well, what are the supervisors going to think? What are the management going to think? And we shouldn't even be thinking that. Do you know what I mean? If you need some support and you need some help, you put your hand up, you get what you need, who cares what the job thinks? It's a job.
You can be
You're
penalised for that though, can't you? Because you can't go on firearms if you have a history of
yeah,
mental
yeah.
health.
Well, the irony is, I've had people message me and say, I won't reach out because I want to get on firearms, and it's like, it's that shouldn't be happening, but that
Yeah,
people are
yeah.
the culture is still there, and it shouldn't be happening. But the big thing for me is around we're not supporting people enough when they join. If we were, I wouldn't get the amount of DMs and messages I get from new starters who are saying the sinking.
Well, you know firsthand, don't you? And I've never met a cop who's left the job by saying the job's too hard. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
they never said, "Oh, I just don't." A lot of bobbies when they start go, "Fucking hell!" I went to this incident the other day. I had no idea what I was doing, but I managed to get through it. And God, I've been there a few times. You know, you turn up and you're on your radio to your mate going, "Can you come and give me a lift?" But that confidence grows over time, and I think the imposter syndrome, like you mentioned, is normal. Certainly, when you're going into something as high pressure and fast paced as policing, the reasons why people I've seen lose, want to go off is most of the time it's terrible management. Like you said, they don't feel supported, and it's just unmanageable. So it's the processes and the functions of the job and being unsupported, which ultimately leads to people leaving. Which, if those people were supported properly, they could be great cops. Like, um, I mean, I left because of a multitude of reasons. Not one of it was because of the incidents you had to deal with. It was all to do with the management. It was to do with the strain you're under, the pressures, the unrelenting demand. Not because of the incidents that I attended myself. So, Ian, do you mind me asking, how come after 18 years you're deciding to leave?
well, probably about 4.5 years ago now, I was on holiday. So I got at that point probably 14 years in, something like that. And I knew I'd been on traffic at this point probably 4 years.
Hmm.
I'd had some really good times there. I loved it. That was my dream job in policing. Wanted to be on traffic, wanted to, drive the cars. That was what I wanted to do. But I was finding that still wasn't enough for me. And I wanted a little bit more at my life. I was coming back. I was in a 4 on 4 off pattern. Got a great team, but I was still coming back, and I felt like I was wasting my life a little bit. My rest days were poor. And my wife just looked at me. We were away on holiday, and she said, "You need to do something." And I was like, "You know what? Yeah." So before the job, I'd done a degree in sports coaching and nutrition. That was what I did. I fell into policing by chance, and I thought, you know what? I've seen so many bobbies that are just struggling massively with their health, their well-being. Maybe I could do something. So I started putting together a little bit of a Facebook group, private, so I couldn't really share anything. Big mistake, and got it to 1,000 people, and quickly realised that I needed to do something else if I actually wanted to grow and make an impact. My pal said to me at work, he said, get yourself on Instagram. I was like, I ain't doing that. I said, I'll get
I'm not
absolutely,
touching Instagram, yeah.
yeah. I said, mate, I'll get murdered if I do that. They'll kill me. I said, I'll get absolutely slaughtered at work. But I don't know what it was, mate. I took a business loan out to start it up initially. And I just thought, you know what, I've got to go all in here. So I started on Instagram, and it was sinking, mate, quickly. The message was poor. Not the message wasn't poor actually, but I didn't know how to navigate social media. I didn't know how to kind of do it. So I took a bit of a plunge, and I went with a guy that runs a social media accelerator. His name's Simon, Strong Media, brilliant guy. Changed my whole trajectory. When I was talking to him on the course, he just said to me, "Look, have you got a police hat?" And I was like, "Yeah." He said, "Put it on," and he said, "And be relatable." And from that moment, mate, my business and the whole Blue Dot lifestyle thing just started to crack on a little bit. But ultimately, the reason why I've decided to leave is because for the past 2 years, my mind has not been on policing. I was turning up. I was thinking about Blue Dot lifestyle. I was thinking about where I could take it, what I could do. I was starting to get more clients, which puts more pressure on me because I want to
Hmm.
produce a good service. And then as the business was growing, I had a really supportive inspector at work, genuinely
Good.
amazing. Um,
Yeah, good.
and
We need more of those. I
yeah,
could have probably
I
done with a
mean,
couple
look,
more of them.
amazing bloke, genuinely, absolutely fantastic. And he just said to me, "Look, why don't you go part time?" He said, "You're doing well. Why don't you go?" And I was like, "You know what? Yeah." So I went 5 and 5 off. We'd gone to a 6 on 4 pattern anyway, which was terrible. We'd
I've
said that it
heard
was going
that's
to
an
ruin
awful
well-being.
pattern. Yeah.
Well, we told them it was going to, affect well-being, and it was going to, completely destroy morale. Didn't listen, and just did it anyway, as they do.
Hmm.
So I went 5 on 5 off, and I thought, you know what, that'll be brilliant. 5 days off, amazing. And within 3 4 months, Matt, I just knew. I thought, I can't do this. I'm dreading the 5 days here.
Yeah, yeah.
So I went back to him, and he just said, "Look, what do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, what can I do?" He said, "Why don't you just tell me what you want to do, and I'll support it." So I said, "Look, I'll just do nights then." Um, so I ended up just doing 2 nights, and I did 2 sets of that. After 2 sets, Matt, I knew. I knew I was done. I was going in, Matt, and I couldn't. I was there, but I wasn't there.
Yeah, there, but the lights, like the lights are on.
Yeah, and it wasn't fair on the people I was working. Not that I wasn't contributing, because I was,
Hmm.
but I wasn't the police officer that I wanted to be because I was too busy thinking about other things. And I thought, you know what, if I can't give it 100%, then I'm doing a disservice to myself. And I'm also doing it. I mean, it's strange how you think, but I'm doing a disservice to the job a little bit. Um, and so I kind of made the decision I'll go on a career break, which, was the whole idea really. Not because of anything. It was a bit of a smoke screen, to be honest, because I wasn't going to go back. But it was, I don't know, maybe to keep a bit of a foot in, a tie in, maybe. I don't know what it was. So yeah, that is ultimately what kind of a passion that was started off as like a bit of a side hustle, then turned into, something. I mean, over the past like 3.5 years, we've helped over like 4,500 police officers and emergency service work.
Hey, I mean, that dude, fucking hats off to you for that. That's insane. And
No,
the ripple effects of that is because you've helped those cops, that means they're better able to help the public.
yeah,
So as a result
yeah,
of you doing what you're doing, you've helped them, and then they're better equipped to help the people who need the help. And
yeah, yeah,
it's interesting to see maybe how many of those officers wouldn't still be in the job if they didn't get the support.
yeah, mate.
What you like what you said before, the job needs to teach people this. They need to teach people about eating properly on shifts because, lad, I was a nightmare for it. A 4 a.m., 20 chicken nuggets, 4 in the morning, like your third night shift, 5 in the morning, 2 in the morning, you're guzzling coffee. You're an absolute zombie, and you wake up the next day and you feel minging, you feel awful because you're not slept properly. Like, there were some cops who I was talking to, and they were saying, "Yeah, I've had 2 hours sleep," or how much sleep you've had today, or I managed to get 3.5 hours, so I'm all right. I had half an hour before, I'm all right. It's like you can't be driving a car at 90 miles an hour, and if someone tested you, you'd probably fail like a fitness test. But if you go to your sergeant or your inspector and say, "I've not slept properly, I can't drive," they won't be happy about that. They'd be like, "Well, that's your problem. Like, you need to get behind the wheel of the car and drive." But then if you have an accident,
Yeah, sure.
then you're up for the high jump as well. They're going to take your legs as well. So there's definitely a bit of like you said, 100% a culture change needed. Just, I mean, God, culture change for a lot of reasons, workload, stress management, all the rest of it. But I think it's ace what you do, man. I think it's proper good. What's your thoughts about supporting officers with mental health issues? I know we touched on it a bit before, but the prevalence of PTSD in the police. Do you think that we need to make officers aware when they first join? You're gonna see some nasty shit.
Oh, mate, yeah, 100%. I mean, if well, for me, it'd be like going into a restaurant and not seeing the menu. Just wouldn't do it. Do you know what I mean?
That that is a really good way of putting it. That I've never even thought of that before. That's brilliant.
You know, you would just wouldn't do it. For me, it's no because what would happen. You'd go in, you'd see the menu, you'd walk out, and that's what's happening now. Yeah,
Are you, that's what I have to deal with.
yeah.
Are you joking me?
You know, I mean, look, I've got no doubts that some people will say, "Oh, you know, we're doing better in our, you know, our marketing and our advertising." Yeah, you might well be, but we're not portraying the realities of what you're going to be dealing with in policing. And I know there's some elements that you probably can't, but certainly the moment that you walk through that door, you know, I think we should be supporting people better. Look, I know, mate, there's people that have, uh, you know, horrific incidents. I've had it whereby, and there's been no support whatsoever.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
from your
yeah.
sergeant, maybe, and maybe like a little bit of a team, but nothing from the organisation. It's words, and it's a tick in the box, uh, and that's right across the country. That is because, and the reason why I can safely say that without thinking that I'm labelling everybody is because we've dealt with everybody from every force, and
Yeah,
nobody's
yeah.
coming to us and going, you know what, it's really good where we are. Um, you know, a couple of weeks ago, I did a poll on my Instagram stories, and it was about whether you think that your force does well-being and welfare well, and it was good, it's okay, could be better or terrible, and we had over 2,500 votes on it, and 83% said that it was terrible or not good. And you kind of sit there and you think to yourself, well, we all can't be wrong here. Do you know what I mean? There might be some pretty good things out there that people might be thinking that's working, but I'll tell you, from the majority of people, they're not working.
I had I took part in one of them police federation morale surveys, and they published the findings, and it was absolutely damning on the force I used to work for. Very similar to yourself, pretty much 90% saying, I can't stand it, I intend to leave, I'm looking for alternate employment. And the bosses were just, I don't know. I mean, another Bobby went, I'm not feeling it and nothing will change. I was like, yeah, but we have to do it. You know, me naive, oh, we have to do it, otherwise they won't know. And he went, no, they do know.
Yeah,
This is a PR exercise. This is to say they've done it. And then my inspector came over to me and said, well, we're going to implement this and this and this and this in the next 12 months. None of it came into place.
yeah.
So it's why aren't the bosses who are in charge of the organization and who have cops going off sick left, right, and center? Why aren't they sticking their head above the parapet and going, you know what, I'm going to sort this? Like,
Uh,
why are they not doing it?
if you want my honest opinion, mate, I'll always be honest. I think they're scared to death.
You reckon?
Yeah, I think there's some amazing people that I use the term leader very loosely because some of them aren't leaders,
Yeah,
they're managers.
they've got the uniform, but
Yeah, yeah, but they've been promoted way above the station, way above,
absolutely, absolutely.
and that's the truth they have. But I'm pretty sure they're lovely people. I've got no doubts about it. But when you're getting pressure as a SLT member from people above, well, what are these figures looking like? What are these? All of a sudden, you can become very muddied on what really matters. And what really matters to you as a leader is, well, what are the stats looking like? How am I going to be able to portray myself in the best light to those people above me that's going to help me to the next level? And that,
So
unfortunately, muddies everything because you forget about the people that are actually out there doing it.
yeah, yeah.
And I think that's probably, look. I'm not. I don't want to label everybody the same, because that's not what I'm doing. But if that wasn't true, things would be better. Um,
Yeah, and we know from the amount of people that message you as well. And
yeah,
I really agree with you. I've worked with some absolute cracking inspectors. Not many, but one in particular who comes straight to mind. I think, if my house were burning down and he drove past, he'd be running in, trying to help you.
yeah,
And but there are some who, there was one inspector in particular who would tell you everything you wanted to hear. Nice bloke, nice to talk to. I'm sure he's a great parent and all the rest of it. But when it came to your head on the chopping block or his head on the chopping block, you better hope you brought a pillow,
yeah,
because
yeah,
he's one of them, like, near the end of the career. They don't want to upset the apple cart. They're just going through the motions, paying lip service. And with you saying that it's, the senior leadership team are terrified, I'm inclined to agree with you, because it becomes, when you get that far in with the pension and the time in and the people you rub shoulders with when you get up higher, it's about self-preservation rather than, like you said, sticking your head above the parapet and going, actually, I need to change this. So mental health is suffering in the police, and the people who are there who can actually make a difference and support it aren't giving the cops the support what's required when they join the police. They're not preparing the officers for going in for what you may encounter. Granted, you can't prepare for every situation. And these problems clearly not getting fixed, or is potentially getting worse, because people are still leaving in absolute droves. So you made a reel recently, and it really made me laugh. And it was how to keep your job as a police officer. And you put on the headphones, you put on I think it was an eye mask, and you gagged yourself. Did you get in any shit for that?
no,
No. Wow.
yeah, nothing.
My old force would have dove all over someone for that. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, like I say, I can't really speak highly enough of them, to be honest. In terms
That's
of
good.
support. When I say support, look, no one's coming to me and saying, "Oh, great work." Do you know what I mean? They're not
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
that. But I haven't had any kind of sits in the office or anything. The only time anybody, believe it or not, I had any sort of, I suppose, comeback was a firefighter reel I did. Where,
Really?
yeah, which apparently someone
Not
had
the
suggested.
water fairies.
Yeah, apparently
Hey.
someone had suggested that, I shouldn't be taking the mick out of them. But I think that the thing is, genuinely, I've got massive amounts of respect for all of them. It's just a little bit
100%.
of banter. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's a little
yeah.
bit of banter, which
Anyone in the blue light services, the ambulance, police, firefighters, it's all an in joke, in it. We all take the piss out of each other. In particular, and like, everyone respects the ambulance service. They never really get any stick, but the police and the fire service always take the mick out of each other.
yeah,
But
I
I
think.
interrupt you then, so I apologise.
Yeah, no, mate. So literally nothing. No one's ever come to me and said anything. No one's ever picked me up on any of the reels. So realistically, I can't sit here and have a pop at the force, because I can't. They've been really good, and
And
you
that's
know,
really good, man.
but I know that that's not reflected right across the country, and that's what I mean about how can where you are in the country dictate what you're allowed to do. Just is absolutely absurd to me. Or what level of service that you get depending on what force you're in, just doesn't
Hmm.
seem right. If I'm allowed to do it and I can do it, why couldn't Sally from Cleveland do it? Do you know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense to me at
Yeah,
all. Unless
it is
warrant
different
card,
rules, isn't it? Say that
yeah.
again.
Unless we've got different warrant cards and it gives us different authorities, but I can guarantee we definitely haven't. It just doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Yeah, it's funny as well. Like, even looking at the leniency which you thankfully had in relation to what, with the blue light lifestyle page, and that's fantastic that the job haven't pulled you in over that. But when we look at the differences in what you can and can't do, it leads me on quite nicely actually to the next thing I wanted to talk about. So in the Met, we're always hearing issues in relation to the Met and everything else. And with that morale thing I spoke about, the ones who were going to leave the most, like the nationwide one, was by far the Met. And we think, hang on, this is the Metropolitan Police, the worldwide known. It's that, that when you think of when somebody from outside the UK thinks of English police, it's probably the Met they think of. Plus, they have to guard the royal family, they have to guard the capital. So, why do you think a force which is so revered is probably, by the sounds of it, from what I'm hearing, one of the worst places to work?
Too big.
Too
That,
big.
yeah, it's too big. That's the problem. I would probably say there's probably too many people. There's too many chiefs that are probably talking, trying to get their point across, and because it's so big, I'd probably say the message just gets massively convoluted, Darren. And when you've got so much demand, and I mean, I work with quite a few people from the Met, sergeants, inspectors, PCs, on different teams, and they're run ragged, absolutely run ragged. They're never getting off on time. The sergeants that I know, are great people and they're trying their best, but they've got their hands tied behind the back. The scrutiny that you're under in the Met is probably higher than anywhere else because of what you've just mentioned.
Yeah.
But I'd probably say it's just too big. There's that much going on that. I mean, the way I would describe it is, it's like you describe a response police officer. They're they're a master of nothing, but they can do it. They can do a lot.
They can do it all, but they're not great at anything.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
no disrespect to any, because that was me. Do you know what I mean?
The
I could,
hardest job in the police
yeah, it is, mate.
response,
But
100%.
by some distance, it is. They should get paid more. They should get more annual.
Yeah.
There should be something to keep bobbies there, because
There's
without
no
it,
incentive. I've always thought this was weird. There's no incentive because I did majority of my career on response, and then I moved to an investigation unit, and I'm sat there behind a desk. I didn't always get to go off on time, but majority of the time I got food. I only worked days and late. I didn't do any nights, and I'm earning the same amount of money as a cop who's doing 4 on 4 off,
yeah, yeah.
who's driving blue lights and seeing all sorts of shit. So what do you think response officers should get in order to keep people on response?
Well, I don't know whether you ever saw it, but there was something called SPP that used to be in, and you used to get that as like a shift allowance, but it was paid in a lump sum, and it was always paid at like Christmas time. So what you'd probably, and if you were a tutor, you'd get like a payment for that as well. So like in your Christmas pay, you could probably take around about 1/8 extra. And every year, I got it for about 2 years. I didn't get it for very long, and then they took it away. But I got the tutor one for a bit, and it was good. But then, you had bobbies that were staying on response. Like when I joined my response team, I got, an officer had been on the same team for probably 30 years. He was retiring. We got like one that had got like 23 years in counting down the days. We've got other people that have been like in their 10 years. You couldn't help but win because you were just around great people who knew what they were doing. They had been there, they'd done it, they could guide you. But they were staying because there wasn't a lot of incentive, but there was an incentive. Do you know what I mean? And for me, you should get paid a little bit more, like something like that, like an SPP, whereby you get a little bit of a reward. Thanks for doing a job that, it's pretty tough. Your workloads are through the roof. If you're a tutor, I know some forces do it, but if you're a tutor, you get a proper payment. You're helping us support the new people, so we're going to give you something to say thank you, whether it's an extra couple of days annual leave, whether it's a payment. All this rubbish and saying that we can't afford it, well, you can, because if you don't, you're going to lose a shitload of officers anyway. So
you'll have to pay a lot more to train new cops.
Yeah, so speculate to accumulate, put the money in to keep people happy and to keep people feeling valued. but they're not doing it, and they're not bothered about doing it.
Response cops are the absolute backbone of the police. Yes, you've got your specialist units and you've got all the rest of it, but if I pick up my phone and I ring 999 and I'll go, I need some help here, it's a response bobby who's turning up. And I mean, when I was doing research for the book I wrote in relation to the job, I was proper astounded. I mean, I knew it anecdotally about the service level of some cops, but someone having 4 years in on response was considered like mega experienced.
Yeah,
But when I started, there was similar to yourself. There was one Bobby who had like 14 years in, and then there was another cop who had about 24 in, 25, and then after that, everyone else was like, I mean, obviously people have to start from somewhere, but there's something clearly wrong with the system if you're not getting many cops staying on it that long. And the experience, it said something like, well, when I was leaving, one of my senior leadership team said to me, don't tell all the rest of them that the job's shit because they'll all start leaving because morale's quite bad anyway. But I think they said 75 or 70% of officers on the front line in that police force, in that area, had less than 3 years service. So then you're getting cops who've just come out of the probation, who are training new officers. And when I looked into it nationwide, it was 50% of cops had less than 10 years service, which makes it sound good in the sense of, okay, well, the other half are clearly really experienced. Yeah, but they've left response, they've gone into a back office somewhere, or they've moved units to something else. So the actual backbone of the police is very inexperienced, and they can't keep the officers there because, like I said, there's no incentive, and they're not teaching people how to be a shift worker. They're not teaching cops the law properly. They're not teaching cops how to look after themselves. So by them failing, the public are getting a worse service. And the bosses would never want that to be properly well known, because then it falls back onto them to say, well, what are you doing about it? Meanwhile, they've fucked everything up and they've gone to the next promotion, so they've moved on. So it's frontline policing. I mean, I thought it was absolutely fantastic when I was on it because I had a decent team, but there were other teams that were absolutely crippled because they just didn't have any staff, or they didn't have the experience, or cops were going off with sick all the time due to mental health or physical conditions. And what's your thoughts about the fitness test and the bleep test when it comes to the police?
well, I mean, I know the bleep test can cause massive amounts of anxiety for people. And it's not just a physical test, it's actually a mental test for a lot of people, because hearing the bleeps just puts people into panic mode. And whether it's 3.7 or whether it's 5.4, 6.3, whatever it might be, if you work yourself up so much, it doesn't matter what it is, you can make it challenging. So I'll never knock anybody that says that they struggle with it, because you'll get people saying, well, they should be able to pass it. Yeah, there might be. That might be the case, but let's not knock people for not being able to. Let's look at the reasons why instead. Do I think it's the right test to measure whether somebody's fit enough to be a police officer? No, and it should be got rid of. But I would probably say that is in the too hard box for them to be doing at the minute. When you've got forces like Australia and the way that they do it, we've helped quite a few people inside the one-to-one go from UK to Australia. And their test is really, really good. Isle of Man, I know they do terrific. We've got a lad in our program, and it's hard. Do you know what I mean? And they make it hard because what they're saying is, you want to be a Bobby here, well, you've got to be pretty fit, and you've got to be able to. Whereas I don't know whether we're doing that here. I think what we're doing is we're just falling into line with what we've always done, and that's policing in a nutshell. We carry on doing the same things over and over again, but realistically, we shouldn't be. No one's chasing after somebody and doing a shuttle.
No one's doing a fight. Billy Bob Burglar's not running at a 5.4, are they?
No, no. Well, should I tell you the big thing about on a bleep test, you'll never ever run at your maximum speed. Never. But when you're chasing somebody, you will. So why aren't we doing some sort of form of test that puts you to that test? You know, maybe does a sprint and then stops, because that's the way that foot chases are. You know, let's make it more realistic. That won't be for everybody, by the way. Some people will come, oh, that would really bother me. But I'll tell you what, I'd prefer that and keep people safer rather than people having this panic over this test that doesn't test anything. Really, it creates panic.
It's the wrong test.
Yeah, it is.
It's interesting what you say there, Ian, because I was about to disagree with you in the sense of, you know, if people feel anxious about it, because but when you phrase it the way you phrased it, it's a case of, yeah, we do make people anxious for a test which doesn't actually serve the job. It's a very minimal amount of fitness really required to be able to pass it. And I know people that have twisted their knee and stuff like that because
Yeah,
of
yeah.
returning. But if you want to make it more lifelike to the job, make it a bit of an obstacle course, or make it so you have to run, like you said, run really fast, and then maybe have to grapple with somebody and get them on the floor and do, you know, put them in handcuffs or it's capture spray. Because as well, it's not just about being able to catch somebody. It's if your mate presses that red button and you know that they are half a mile down a dirt path on a park wrestling with somebody, you want to know that you can get there as quick as you can. And equally, you want to know that your colleagues are coming to help you as fast as they can, because it's part of keeping fit for duty as well. But if they don't put the right things in place in order for you to be able to do that and make it realistic to the job you're going to be going into, then you're going to be completely unprepared when that happens. So, have you noticed any kind of shift in the quality or the types of officers coming into the police now?
Well, I suppose if you asked some more experienced officers, they'd say, "Well, yeah, yeah, definitely. You know, they're not the same now." Um, but I also would counter argument it and say, "Well, the job's not the same as what it. Policing's not going to change. You know, the core values of policing won't change, but the way the job is, 1,000,000% is, because ultimately, policing, isn't evolving, but has to. The the people that we're dealing with, the incidents that we're dealing with, are different. The challenges in terms of people's mental health is completely different now than what it was 20 years ago, because we didn't have a Facebook, we didn't have social media, we didn't have other
Oh
things
God.
that put so much pressure on people.
Hmm.
Um, so, look, you know, the retention levels will suggest that people aren't coping as well, but I would argue that the
Hmm.
job's not making it easier for them to cope
It's
because the
not
culture's changed.
preparing them for what they're going to
So
come
I
in and
think it's
say.
an unfair thing to label at the people. Look, some people are coming in, and they're not right people. But that was happening 20 years ago as well.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but now it's highlighted even more, because if you've just
Hmm.
come into a job and you're in the police, I mean, I can't get my head around the degree program. I can't. It just
I was
absolutely
just
baffles
about
my
to
brain.
say that.
Yeah,
Why do you need a degree to be a cop? You need to be able to talk to people. Number one thing being a bobby. Can you speak to people? That's
well,
your number one tool.
I think the argument will always be we're opening doors for professional people to come into the police. Totally agree. No problem with it at all. But have it as an option rather than, and it is going. I know a lot of forces are kind of stepping away from it because they're realising that what's happening is that the well-being, the welfare is not looked after. They're not giving the study time that they're meant to have. So people are getting the degree and going, "See you later. I'm off. I'm going to go and get another job somewhere else that's going to treat me better than what you have. But I've got my degree. Happy days."
And it's also doing shift work.
Yeah,
I mean, mate, I didn't do the degree. I just did the, the interview and the test center and everything else. I did like the old fashioned way. But I speak to some cops and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing on your rest days?" "Oh, I've got an essay to write."
yeah,
Like they've been off late every single day, and now they have an essay to write. And it's there has to be some. You can't do both, because it's hard enough just doing the cop part, the policing part. Then you have to study for a degree as well on top. And how do you expect that when you're underslept, you're under resourced, you're stressed out your head? You might be 19, 20 years old, and this is your first proper job. How are you equipped with life experience and how to manage just not only the job itself but your health surrounding that, and
Yeah,
then do a degree on top? And
yeah,
then, like you said, they wonder why people are going, thanks, I've gone through all that hell to get it. I don't want to be here anymore.
yeah, yeah. It's
It's
mate, it's absolutely bonkers. But look, there's going to be some people out there that will go, you know what, I've coped. It's not been too bad at all. I'll do it. But that's life in general. But
mhm,
what you've got to do is you've got to look at what the consensus is saying.
yeah, yeah,
Look, do I think there's a place for it? Yeah, maybe, because some people will go, you know what, I'd like to do it. I'd like to be able to do the both at the same time. But if you're going to do it and you are going to put that route in place, the job has got to do better at supporting people to get that. It's no good getting it and getting it by default because you're just falling over the line. And for a lot of people, that's exactly what's happening. We're getting here, and it's like, oh, thank God that's over. Whereas what we should be doing is, if you get a degree, you'd be celebrating your success and going, you know what, I've done a great thing here. But we're not. We're just like, oh, thank God for that's over. And that shouldn't be the way that it is.
definitely not. I've got a couple more questions for you, mate. There's loads. I mean, if I wanted to ask you everything I want to ask you, I reckon we'd be here for about 6 hours because I think your experience and your insight is very interesting. And I think a lot of people would love to hear it.
No, I
Um,
appreciate
but I've just got a couple of little questions. There's been a lot in the news about two-tier policing, how policing is looking at uh, policing people based on culture, race. Did you experience any of that when you were in your career at any point?
Mate, honestly, I'm not suggesting for a second that people might not have had members of the public might have had experience of it. But honestly, 18 years, I never experienced any of it. I never. We went on some brilliant jobs, massive jobs, going to diverse communities, and I never saw it. Do you know what I mean? I never saw a police officer target somebody because of their colour, or it was never the case, or their religion. It was based off intelligence, based off what you saw, based off your experience. Um, but the one thing that I will say to it is that there's going to be people out there who are going to say, "Well, no, my experience of it is that is the case." And this is where I was going earlier, whereby we miss a trick with social media because uh, what police forces don't do very well is we don't highlight the reasons why we're doing things because we're scared so much of backlash. Um, what are people going to think if we put this out? Don't matter. Put it out there because if you don't, people are going to make their own minds up anyway. So, prime example, last year, the highest viewed reel was a Met officer knocking off someone on a scooter, one of the phone thefts. So, a massive issue right across the capital. Um, Most viewed reel, and there was nothing put out as a response to it to kind of go, these are the reasons why we've done it.
Hmm.
And you kind of sit down and you think, oh my God. So what we've done is the reel's gone out and it's got tons and tons of traction, lots of views. And all we're going to do is we're going to let members of the public that maybe don't know the reasons why that's happened just make up their own mind rather than going, you know what, this is our response to that. We actually really support the officer in what they've done because, one, they're allowed to do it because
Hmm.
we've put the policy in place to allow them to do it. And secondly, this is a huge problem right across the capital that is affecting thousands and thousands of lives, and we're looking to do it to protect you. It's the
Hmm.
safest way to conclude the pursuit. It's the easiest way for us to prevent harm or injury to other people and to the person on the bike. And these are the reasons. If you'd have done that, you'd have still got people who'd have turned around and gone, rubbish, you
Hmm.
bullies. But you'd have also got a lot of people who'd have gone, you know what, yeah, actually,
Yeah.
I can see that.
Finally, they're doing something about it. My mate had
Exactly.
his phone nicked and the police didn't do anything. I think with policing, because of the very nature of the job itself, you're always going to get back flack. So why not address the back flack you're going to probably get anyway? And it's good what you say about the social media thing. And I do think the police, I know they are trying. I see some bits here and there, and it's always to address the good work the police do. And the good work needs to be celebrated, because there's cops every day who put their lives on the line, who do amazing things for people, and you never hear about it. It's
Yeah,
never in the news or anything like that. You only ever hear when cops do something wrong or when cops fuck up. And because that is what gets clicks, that's what makes the headlines, that's what sells papers. And I think the police, like you said, the police need to combat that by going, well, no, we're going to put out our own narrative. Obviously, there's legal ramifications and stuff surrounding prejudicing cases and that, but you can at least put out some kind of response in a way which is digestible to people via social media. Okay, Ian, couple of last questions, pal. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for willing to do this. To be honest, I think I've actually asked you pretty much everything. Tell me about what you do and tell me what your mission is.
Well, I suppose Blue Dot Lifestyle is a it's a lifestyle service. That's ultimately what I would describe it as. We are there to help the health and well-being of police officers and emergency service workers. We provide one-to-one coaching, whereby we'll look at every aspect of your life, look at your energy, your sleep, your routine, your structure, look at your food, so you're the best version of yourself both at home and at work. We'll look at your training to put you in a position whereby the overwhelm of the job isn't taking over, and you're back in control. Because that's what everybody wants, control. We want control. And that's ultimately what we do. One-to-one coaching, we've currently got about 160 people inside the one-to-one.
That's
Got a great
amazing.
community of people.
Yeah.
People are stopping because of the community. That's the one big thing that I think, as emergency service workers right across the country, we need community, because it's a bloody hard job. And if you can create an environment whereby people feel safe, they can bounce off each other, they can share the wins, share the challenges, that for me is what it's about. The one-to-one, we also have a psychological therapist in the programme. We provide 3 sessions a month on anxiety, stress, work-life balance, emotional eating, because you can't have one without the other. You can do as much as you want the physical aspect, but if the emotional side's off, or you're not getting some support with it, then that's off. And we've got 4 coaches in the programme, who have all got experience in the job, do the shifts, so we get the challenges, the struggles. And I suppose Blue Light Lifestyle is kind of developing a little bit further. We do like a 6-week shred, so we just get people in to show them a condensed version of what we do. We've got Restart, which is a work at your own pace program, that does very, very well, get some great feedback from it. But I suppose the social media aspect for me is I want to try and create a safe space for police officers and emergency service workers to see that they're not alone. That's ultimately what Blue Light Lifestyle is all about. Showing people, you know what, I'm going to share my experiences, I'm going to bear all, and not be ashamed to do it, because we shouldn't be. If you're burning out, don't be ashamed to put your hand up. If you're struggling with your mental health, don't be afraid to put your hand up. And here's some of the things that you can look for. I like to try and give some, lifestyle advice. I like to try and put a smile on people's face a little bit with some stupid reels and.
There's one thing I like about you, Ian, is you don't take yourself too seriously online. You're not afraid of being a bit like, I love the videos where you're talking to yourself and they're talking as if it's 2 people talking. And I think you are very relatable, and that's one of the reasons why I think your platform is growing so much. And you're not scared of saying what people are thinking as well. Like I mentioned, the brutal truth to being a cop. It's not just about eat better or do this. You actually address the issues what cops do face, and I think that's why you're getting so much traction. And I've absolutely 100% admiration for what you do. I think it's brilliant. I think more people need to not only know about you, but more people need to adopt the kind of lifestyle changes and the mental health support which you advocate for. But so people can follow you online, Blue Light Lifestyle on Instagram. Anywhere else you are? I know you're on TikTok. Anything else?
I am on TikTok, but I'll be honest with you, I struggle with it a little bit. I should just literally do the ones that I do on The reels that I put on Instagram should just go over to TikTok, but I forget. I did one today and I didn't put it across. But I'm on LinkedIn as well. If you want a little bit more of maybe my thoughts on policing, because one of my big things that I want to do is, yes, I want to provide support for the health and well-being of officers because it's really important to me. I care about it. It's a pleasure when anyone puts their life in my hands. It genuinely is. However, I also want to hold a mirror up to the job. I want to hold a mirror up to the people that matter and say, you know what, these are the problems that people are facing. These are the issues that need sorting. And I'm more than happy to go, you know what, I'm going to talk about them. Because if nobody does, nothing's ever going to change. And on LinkedIn, I don't want to be one of these people that causes arguments with people. I just want to put stuff out there that is the truth. You know, today I put about response policing. A couple of weeks ago, you know, I put about leadership on there, and it got some really good traction. But the reason why it probably does is because it's holding a mirror up, and you know, people can relate to it a little bit. I'm not going to say everything that I say people are going to agree with, and I don't expect that either. We're all individuals and we'll have difference of opinion, and that's totally fine. But I will always try and be honest and give my honest opinion on what I think needs to change. Might not be right, but I'll draw on my experiences and what people have told me to kind of come to those conclusions. So yeah, those probably are the two. We've got our own little podcast as well, Blue Lights and Spaghetti Hoops.
Brilliant.
We kind of do. Me and Fit for Rescue, Chris Ward, the firefighter. So I wanted to try and get, you know, with Chris because he's a lovely bloke and we can give a different perspective on things. So yeah, that was probably the three main things that I'm kind of focusing on. Instagram, at Blue Light Lifestyle, LinkedIn, under my name Ian Cook, and then Blue Light Lifestyle, and then Blue Lights and Spaghetti Hoops.
Amazing. Well, I'll put all of them in the description and in the show notes, mate. And again, absolute admiration for what you do. Last question. If you could wave a magic wand, doesn't have to be about policing, but if you could wave a magic wand and something in society has changed, what would it be? I probably should have given you a bit of time to think about this before.
No, mate, I like that.
I thought of it as I was writing the show notes. So
I'm going to relate it to policing.
Okay.
Because I think I can probably relate to that a little bit more. If I could wave a magic wand, I think I'd probably go along the lines of saying that we would pay police officers and emergency service workers the wage that I feel they deserve. Because then everybody benefits in society.
Absolutely. And more people would want to join and more people would want to stay. And more people, like you said, would adopt healthier lifestyles in order to make their career better, which can only benefit the people who we serve. Amazing. Ian, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for your time. Make sure you follow Ian, make sure you subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Thank you very much, mate. Appreciate it.